Do y'all think that the better team won, or was this just a bad game?
They got a cloud hanging over their head.
You execute when you're supposed to execute, and we didn't do that. They were the better team in that game.
Well, what's up, everybody? It's Wes. We are 1 week closer to college football season, and that time will soon be upon us when we allow the decisions of 18 to 22-year-olds on the football field to affect our mental health. So, let's just keep that in mind when we start to throw that shoe at the TV. Okay, so joining me as always are Jesse and Matt. And if you don't know, we represent three different fandoms here. Well, Jesse and Matt actually went to their schools, but I'm a Georgia fan, Jesse is an Alabama fan, and Matt is a Tennessee fan. Today, we're going to learn about a very special topic from a very special guest who we will introduce.
Wes, hold on. I want to throw this out there because this popped up on Twitter this week.
Yeah.
If you didn't go to the school, are you still technically allowed to say us? And here's the thing. I went to Tennessee for a minute, not very long, but for a minute. Jesse graduated from there, and you didn't go to UGA.
Right.
But to anybody, and I'm going to throw this out there, and I know completely derailed what you were saying there, Wes, but I think this is an important point. It does not matter at all if you graduated or attended that university. If you have spent money on a ticket, if you have spent money on a shirt, if you have spent time sitting in front of a TV watching teams play, I think you're allowed to say us.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, when I say us or we, I never played a down of football. I know that comes as a shock, right? But I never played a down of football. So it may be frowned on for me to say us or we, but I'm still going to say it.
Well, and to your point, and to take it even further, I guarantee you a lot of those same people who may have a problem with that when it comes to pro teams will say us, and I guarantee you they've never played on the pro team and never been employed in their front office or wherever. So,
yeah, my favorite meme, and I wear jerseys all the time. I love jerseys. I wear collegiate jerseys. I wear pro jerseys, but I saw a meme of someone that was like, I find it so interesting that these grown men are wearing the work uniforms of other grown men on their off days.
It's fine. It's fine.
Yeah, it is. Anyway, it is funny when you think about
it. That thing popped up on Twitter like 3 times this week, and I was like, why are we still having this argument? Like, don't gatekeep stuff.
Right.
Like, there's no point to it. Just let people live. Let people live.
And what is it harming you?
There's the name for the episode. Let people live. Just let people live.
Let people live. Don't steal joy.
Exactly. Like I said, we're going to learn about a very special topic from a very special guest who we will introduce later in the episode. But first, let's get down to the nitty-gritty, as they would say in Nacho Libre. Because we're going to give you guys our very own personal preseason rankings based on a tier system. At the top, we have favorites, then further down we have contenders, then middling, then dog water, and then just plain awful. So without any more fanfare, let's start with Matt. Let's hear what your preseason rankings are according to the tier system. TIERS, not TEARS. Hopefully not.
The TEARS might be flowing for some of these teams this season. I think I'll start off before I even get cranked up. Let me throw this out there. These tiers are based on absolutely nothing but gut instinct.
I love the titles too, which I think you came up with, didn't you?
I did. I'm pretty proud of that. The Midland one is particularly one of my favorites. Although I really enjoy the term dog water now for some reason. I find a way to bring that into every conversation that I can. Like the other day I was writing on the board and the kids are like, Fortson, we can't tell what that is. I'm like, I know, my handwriting's dog water. My mom said I should have been a doctor. Mm-hmm. But the fact of the matter is that these rankings are based on nothing other than just me making educated guesses. I spent a little bit of time looking at how teams finished up last season based on who they picked up in the portal, based on who they've signed, based on how they looked in the spring, based on what we've heard. Like any of that stuff, completely out. This is completely off the cuff. So I just want to throw that out there because I know there's going to be some people, I won't say from which particular fandom, but I guarantee there will probably be a fandom in there that will be like, well, you said this is why I'm just shooting from the hip here, pal. All right, we're just going to go for it. So, without further ado, I have two teams in my just plain awful category. First off, I feel Vanderbilt is going to finish dead last in the conference, just based on how they've looked in the last couple of years. We talked about it just a second ago. They lost a lot of people to the transfer portal. Things are not looking good in Nashville, and they haven't looked good in Nashville in a couple of years. So I have a hard time imagining they're going to be a lot better than just plain awful. Plus, their schedule is not that great either, from what I remember. After speaking with Emily last week, I feel a little bad that I put Mississippi State also in this category. Emily, if you're watching, I'm sorry. But again, just Mississippi State's in one of those situations. They got a new head football coach. We don't really know what they're looking at. Again, transfer portal and all that stuff coming into play. It's up in the air. We're not sure what it's going to look like in Stark Vegas. We'll just have to wait and see. As far as dog water, and I kind of hemmed and hawed on this because I thought about putting Florida in that just plain awful category, but I think there will be a couple of bright spots. But the first team that's in my dog water category is Florida. Florida has a couple of things that could go their way, but they're playing an exceptionally hard schedule this season. I think they've got like number 6 or number 5 as far as the toughest schedules in the conference. It's really bad. When you look at who they're playing, where they're playing, it's a rough situation. Also in that category, I feel like Arkansas is also going to be dog water this season. And again, I hate that for Pittman. He's a big fan or a big friend of the P&P podcast here, so we love us some Sam Pittman, but things aren't looking good in Fayetteville, and I don't see it being much better.
But they have a new OC.
As long as he stays off the Harleys, we should be fine. Anyhow, as far as the Midland, those are those teams that are going to sneak around and find a way to win ball games that they probably shouldn't. But they're going to be kind of that middle of the pack, maybe looking at 3 or 4 losses in the conference, but able to surprise a couple people here and there. So I have 4 teams in that category. I've got South Carolina to start off with. I'm still not sold on Beamer Ball, trademark. I don't think, and again, I thought about putting South Carolina with dog water, but they've been sneaking around on people a couple seasons ago, in particular University of Tennessee. So Carolina's in that Midland category. Auburn, I think Hugh Freeze is getting the tools in place, but the problem is I don't think he's got everything lined up quite yet. So I think Auburn's going to be another one of those teams that's kind of in the middle. Texas A&M is still trying to figure out what exactly their identity is going to look like in the post-Jimbo Fisher era. Plus, I think their schedule has a couple of really tough teams on it. I know they're going to have to play Texas. I know they're going to have to play, I think Oklahoma's on that schedule too, if I remember correctly. I may be misremembering, but I don't like their chances there either. And the other team I have in Midland is Kentucky. Not Bob Stoops. Help me out. I just had a brain fart. Mark, thank you. Mark Stoops has done a good job with Kentucky football, but again, it's always been kind of one of those situations where they're going to be okay. Sometimes they overachieve, but they don't very rarely underachieve. But I feel like Kentucky's going to be kind of in that middle. They may sneak up on somebody that they're not supposed to. As far as contenders, this is probably the biggest category because in the post-Nick Saban era here in the SEC, sorry, Jesse, I feel like the West is going to be wide open. I'm not sure if
anymore, though. There is no West.
Oh, that's right. Well, you're absolutely
the Wild West.
To take wind out of my sails. I just feel like a lot of these teams that are in the western end of the conference are going to be kind of in the mix. So contenders, I've got Oklahoma. I think Oklahoma could be a contender. They're coming off kind of a rough season last season. I think they've had 4 losses last year. They went 8-4, something like that. Maybe 9-3. I don't remember exactly what they went. But I think Oklahoma's in that contender mix. I think they've got a couple of offensive weapons. I heard somebody say their defense supposed to have gotten a couple good guys over the last couple in the portal, so maybe they'll be a contender. I think Texas is going to come in and maybe be a contender. We're going to talk a little bit about Texas a little bit later, next week probably. But it'll be interesting to see where Oklahoma and Texas kind of fit in with everything else. Now, I think Texas has got the weapons. If things line up, I think Texas has got the weapons to contend in the SEC and for that to get in the championship spot. I think Bama, just going strictly off of weaponry, especially the wide receiver core. We know Jalen Milroe's a known quantity. I think he's going to be good. The defense is going to be good. I think Bama's going to have a chance to contend. I don't know if Bama's going to be able to be the ones that finishes in the top two, but we'll see. Not to sound like a homer, I think Tennessee's another team that's a contender. And if you listen to a lot of people that know college football, they're saying Tennessee is a dark horse to win the SEC this year. So there's some things there. If things line up, we know Josh Heupel's put some pretty good recruiting classes together here as of late. We got a couple guys in the portal. It'll be interesting to see where Tennessee lands. The other contenders that I have in that mix are LSU. I think LSU was primed last year to make a run for things, but again, due to some losses here and there, that didn't exactly pan out the way they had wanted to. And as much as it pains me to say it, I think Missouri may have a shot here. I hate to say that. We were talking a second ago about how much I love Missouri and Coach Drinky. But Missouri found a way to win 10 games, 11 games. They win 11 games last season, 10 or 11 games, however many they won. And I don't think they lost a lot of strength in the portal or lost a lot of strength in the offseason. I think most of their offense is coming back, including their wide receiver, whose name escapes me off the top of my head. Is it Borden? I think it is.
Burden the third.
Yeah, Burden. Sorry. He's supposed to be really good. He had a good season last season. I don't see why it would get worse. So Mizzou kind of rounds out contenders. Now, as far as my two picks to finish 1 and 2 in the SEC, I think the SEC championship game is going to come down to the last two teams that we have not mentioned yet, which would be the University of Georgia. I think UGA is going to have a pretty good squad this year. I don't know if they make it to the SEC title game undefeated, ? They may drop one at some point, but with a 12-man playoff, you can lose a game now. It's not a huge problem. So I think UGA finds a loss or two before the end of the season. Maybe not two, maybe just one. And then the other team that I think is going to be another favorite is Ole Miss. I think Kiffin's got them primed and ready to go. The question is, what is their defense going to look like this season? And I think if you can find a way to get that defense to go with that pretty talented offense, Ole Miss is going to be a contender, have a chance to win this thing as well. So my pick for the SEC championship game is going to be Georgia and Ole Miss. And I think if it comes down to those two teams, I like Georgia's chances a little better. But that's kind of where I'm at.
So are you saying that the 12-team playoff waters down the season, Matt? Is that what you're saying? So.
Absolutely not. We've made my opinion on the 12 water, or sorry, 12. Sorry,
dog
the 12
water, 12
team,
dog water,
12 team playoff. Quite known.
I know, I'm just messing. All right, so okay, I like those. I like those tiers there. So yeah, I'll start with just plain awful as well. And kind of the perennial team in this category is Vanderbilt. All of their quarterbacks left. They'll be starting from scratch with their new OC, Tim Beck from New Mexico State. He's going to bring his quarterback, Diego Pavia, and I apologize if I mispronounced that, but he'll bring him with him, and we'll see if he wins the spot. They also lost their top 4 wide receivers to the transfer portal. All 4 of their top receivers. So more personnel change there and will be a challenge for sure. One thing I thought was interesting, Clark Lee will assume the defensive play calling duties this year. So we'll see how that goes on the defensive side of the ball. And then another team that may come as a surprise to many in this category, I've decided to go ahead and put Florida in the just plain awful. Florida fans, don't hate me too much. But here we go. Billy Napier's 11-14 record through 2 seasons is the worst 2-year start at Florida since Charlie Pell in 1979 to 1980. If he has another losing season, we're going to be taking it back to the 1940s for that history. So Graham Mertz returns at quarterback, so that might help some with some consistency. Last year's defense was pretty abysmal, so Napier fired a lot of those defensive coaches. We'll see how their replacements fare. But yeah, a lot of pressure on Napier this year, so we'll see how that goes.
Battles.
Yeah. Moving to the dog water category. First, I had Arkansas. KJ Jefferson and Rocket Sanders are gone to UCF and South Carolina, respectively. So they'll be counting on transfers Taylon Green from Boise State at quarterback and Jaquindon Jackson from Utah at running back. So they're just in looking at their last few seasons, they've got to start winning more close games. That's really been kind of the difference in their record. A lot of those close games they've not come through. So South Carolina, I'm also going to put in the dog water category. Replacing Rattler and Leggett won't be easy. Yes, Rocket Sanders is joining them, which could help, but they'll have to protect him. And redshirt freshman Lenoris Sellers to be successful on the offensive side of the ball. Defense returning a lot of experience, but they've got a lot of ground to make up after last year's setback. So Mississippi State, I did put them a tier above in the dog water category. They are it's certainly going to be a challenge for Jeff Lebby coming in as head coach. He does bring a history of running prolific offenses, but they have a lot of challenges on the schedule, specifically on the road at Texas, Georgia, and Ole Miss. So it's gonna be a little bit tough there. All right, let's move to Midland, which is my personal favorite category here because it just sounds funny. Kentucky, excited to see what Brock Vandegrift can do with that offense. I am sad that he left Georgia, but I get it. I'm happy for him. Hopefully, I'm hoping that he'll have a chance to do good things, not against Georgia, hopefully, but against other teams. It's hard to really know about Kentucky right now, but I think there is a level of optimism there. So the next team I have there is Auburn. Peyton Thorne will be starting. Tyrone Nix comes in from Ole Miss at OC. And DJ Durkin comes over from A&M as DC. So a lot of moving pieces here. Their schedule is Midland too, with some easy ones as well as some real challenges. So we'll see. Okay, sorry, Matt. I am putting Tennessee in the Midland category.
Hate it.
I think the Vols will be good, but their schedule has some real challenges sprinkled throughout it. However, that's fluid. If they start handling some of those, I think that they definitely deserve to be moved up. Texas A&M is also in the Midland category. The Jimbo era is over, and it's Mike Elko's turn. So lots of changes going on, but they're not talentless. The cupboard isn't bare, so to speak. A stat A&M fans won't want to hear is the fact that the Aggies have managed only 12 wins in the past 2 years. So that's not great. They're going to want to up those. And then another one that I put in the Midland category is Oklahoma, simply because there's lots of unknowns for them, including a new quarterback in Jackson Arnold. So the defense is supposed to be solid, but they have many tests, including Tennessee, Texas, Ole Miss, Missouri, Alabama, and LSU. So that's a rough schedule for your first year in the SEC. So if they get through, relatively unscathed, they'll definitely be at the top or near the top in the rankings. All right, so let's move to the contenders category. And like you, Matt, I put Mizzou here. Missouri, obviously expectations are through the roof. And they're also helped out with the schedule that you alluded to earlier, Matt, that features, get this, Murray State, Buffalo, Boston College, and UMass out of conference. And in conference, they have Vanderbilt, South Carolina, Mississippi State, and Arkansas. So ain't a whole lot of tests in there.
They have, wait a minute, hold on now. Did you say UMass and Buffalo?
Correct. And Boston College and Murray State.
Yeah, like that's like 3 teams that have been in the bottom 10 for the last 20 years. That's
yeah.
Mizzou fans, if you're out there, if y'all don't find a way to win 9 games, I don't know what to tell you.
Right. No, I mean, that's a good point. I mean, the schedule really sets up nicely.
Schedule. Damn.
I think the schedule is going to get them when they get to playoff time.
I think it might get exposed at the end. Yeah, you never know. They will have tests against Alabama and Oklahoma, so we'll see how that goes. Next in the contender category.
Hold on, wait. Yeah. I just had a nightmare scenario where Missouri finds a way to win just enough games to finish into the playoff, and as a result, Tennessee doesn't make the playoff. and I think
Wow,
that makes me
you truly went to a dark place there.
that I really did go to a really dark place there.
Immediately.
Sorry,
Wow.
Wes. Go
Hey,
ahead. Go
you're
ahead,
good.
Wes.
Um,
Oh God.
next is Ole Miss. There's no Quinshon Judkins this year. He's at Ohio State now. But Jackson Dart is back for his final season. They did really well in the transfer portal again, as they are wont to do. And they're poised to make a charge. So I'm going to put them there in the contender category. Another team here is LSU. They're going to adjust to life after Jaden Daniels and Malik Neighbors. So it's going to be challenging, but Nussmeier has looked pretty good. He will be the guy in his fourth season. I think it's not his first time starting, but it'll be his first full season starting at quarterback there.
I seem to remember he also looked really good in the spring, didn't he? Weren't there a lot of people talking about how
Yeah.
good his numbers looked during the spring game? So I mean,
Yeah.
he may be somebody.
He's
I
good.
can tell you that on College Football 25, he's been winning the Heisman a lot. So I don't know what that
Nice.
says.
Nice, but you never know. It's funny. So, LSU's turned around quickly under Brian Kelly, as their fans love to remind us of. But it seems they're kind of in a bit of a weird spot with maybe Texas coming in and maybe going to take their place, kind of as that team right under, the top and challenging for the top spot. So we'll see. We'll see what happens with them. They're right there, as they've been the past few seasons. Then let's go to the favorites, and I'm going to start with Texas. There are a few tests on their schedule with Georgia and maybe Michigan and Oklahoma, but they drew a fairly favorable schedule that sets them up nicely as well. So Texas looking good. I think they were picked in a preseason SEC poll to finish second in the conference, so they're right there. Okay, and then Alabama. It might seem like a weird place to put them after Saban's retired, but for me, this is kind of like a placeholder, right? Like similar to some of the logic we've done with some of these other teams. I think they need to look bad before I'm going to drop them. Like until they prove to me that they're not going to continue along the same trajectory they have, the past few seasons, I think I'm going to keep them there. And we'll see if they live up to the hype. And that brings us to Georgia. Tough schedule this year, as you mentioned, which, it's been a complaint in the past few years about Georgia, but there's no room for complaints this year. It's going to be a tough one with some tough ones on the road, including Bama and Texas on the road. But until they're beaten and their weaknesses are exposed, they're the favorites. So we'll see. And I did just see where them and Ohio State just pulled even nationally in terms of favorites to win the title this year. So we'll see how that goes. But that's mine.
Why are we always so high on Ohio State? Ohio State and Notre Dame have to be the two teams that are constantly in the mix.
It's all about the brand, Matt. It's all about the brand. So.
Ridiculous.
When you voluntarily put and make it a mandate to have the in front of your name, so you're listed in the T's instead of the O's.
Like, and we do petty stuff here in the South and in the SEC as well, but still the whole crossing off every single M on campus also for Michigan week. That's a bit much. I don't know.
That's pretty heavy. It's pretty heavy.
Yeah.
Hey,
Jesse,
we better stop though, because the Ohio State fans will get in our comments and they'll be all over the place. So.
They sure will. Jesse, what are your tiers looking like?
I'm gonna go backwards.
Okay.
You guys went top to bottom. I'm about bottom to top. So I'm gonna start with my favorites category, and not mine, but you get it.
She was quick to clarify that, wasn't she?
Yeah, you get it. Of course, as Wes said, I'm gonna put Bama up there again. They have the weapons there. They have the talent there. Nick Saban left them with a pretty good system. He's still.
But do they have the coaching?
Still kind of there. But, and you have a coach that has made it very far. Didn't win a natty, but made it very far. We didn't win a natty either. So I'm excited to see what happens at Alabama. I truly don't know what's going to come from this season. And it's hard to expect the unexpected because we've had Coach Saban since 2007. So we have no idea what this is going to look like. And it's like Wes said, until I know that it's bad, I'm going to say that it's good. So Alabama's there. Call me a homer, call me biased. I am. It's fine.
Homer.
I am. My next one is going to be Georgia. And again, these favorites are not in any numerical order, but I think Georgia has a tough schedule for sure. They're going to have some battles that they've got to win. I think they have experience on their side, which is pretty helpful. And, they've got Carson Beck coming back. He had a great year. They have a lot of skill players that I think are coming back. That's going to be very helpful for them. So as long as we can keep our discipline in line, I think Georgia's a contender up there in the favorites. My next one is going to be Texas. I think Texas, they went 12-2 last year. They went 8-1 in the Big 12, which, okay. But they have a tough-ish schedule. However, they've got experience returning on their side as well. They've got Quinn Ewers returning. He's got a solid O-line, and they've picked up some good talent in the transfer portal. So I think they're going to be a team to watch. The biggest thing with them that I think is going to be a really good taste check is going to be Michigan in week 2. That's going to be a huge statement if they can beat Michigan in week 2, if they're still the reigning champions. Unless that gets taken away.
Not gonna happen. But
I wouldn't hold your breath. Yeah.
Wishful thinking. It's fine. But from there, we're gonna go to contenders. I put Ole Miss here. Again, Ole Miss was great. I think we've got a stellar offensive mind when it comes to Lane Kiffin. They were 11-2 last year. They were 6-2 in the conference. The only thing, it's like you said, yes, they have experience on the offensive side, but we've just got to get that defense going. And they're going to have a couple, games out there that are really going to tell us what we're looking at. They've got to go to Death Valley and play in LSU. They get Georgia and OU in the Grove, so that's helpful. So we'll see what we're dealing with Ole Miss there. But for me, they're definitely a contender.
Jesse, I have to point out, and I'm not trying to be funny because I'm not trying to because I know we did this hurriedly, but I noticed you spelled the contenders Continders. But I was wondering, are you trying to allude to, you just mentioned Ole Miss, contender Kiffin?
I guess
Stop it. Stop it.
Okay, sorry.
Maybe there's a Freudian slip, but also, as I'm sure all the Auburn fans will like to point out, I went to Alabama. I can't spell. It's fine.
Joey Freshwater.
It's fine. My next contender is going to be Mizzou for all the reasons we've already said. That schedule, come on. But they also they've got experience on their side returning too. I put Tennessee, as much as it pains me so much to do, in the contenders category. And the reason I did that, yes, they were 4-4 in the SEC last year and 9-4 overall. However, I think that there's some anchors there in their front seven that are going to be a big deal for them. And they have some tough road games for sure, but I don't know. It's like they said, they could be a little bit of a dark horse. So I'm going to put them as a contender there. Moving down to Midland. We're Midland. I'm putting LSU here in Midland. Again, we've already mentioned it. You've lost your quarterback. You've lost your star wide receiver. So for me, there's just a lot of question marks there that I couldn't put them up into the contenders category. I don't know. It's not that Nussmeier didn't do enough last year, but for me, 6-2 in the SEC, I just don't know. I think they start out against USC. We'll see how that goes. They've got to have, like I said, Ole Miss at home. I don't know. I think it's going to be a big transition from having Jaden Daniels. And I'm just too many question marks there for LSU for me. I put OU in this category. OU did pretty well in the Big 12 last year, but I think coming into the SEC, there just might be some growing pains. I think they're going to be a contender and they could make some people slip up. But for me, I just don't have enough on OU to make me put them in a contenders or a favorites category.
I think that Tennessee-Oklahoma game is going to be a real eye-opener on how Oklahoma's going to be able to hang, to be honest.
Absolutely huge. It's going to show who's who and who is for real. For Kentucky, they're going to be in this category for me too. Like you said, they've got Brock Vandagriff, which is interesting. I hope we get to see what he's really made of, because we didn't really get to see that at Georgia. There's going to be a pro style offense there, I think, at Kentucky with Bush Hamden's offense, and you've got some new targets to throw to. So we'll see. We'll see what's going on there. But for me, Kentucky gets a little bit of hype and we're like, whoa, this could be something. And then it just isn't quite something.
Yep.
So I can't help it. And then for me, I don't know why I did this. I truly don't. I think I blacked out when I made this. Okay. A little bit. I put Mississippi State. Were they 1-7 in the SEC? Sure. Were they 5-7 overall? Sure. But they do have a transfer quarterback. Okay. That's going to come in and he's maybe going to help. We've got a first-year coach, so we just don't know. But they do have 10 returning starters. That's good, right?
It's got to count for something.
They have a little bit of a tough schedule, and I'm interested to see how they play against Arizona State, because they do have to go on a road trip to Arizona State.
That's really random.
At Midland, I think they could trip some people up this year. Who could say? On to dog water, as we do. I'm putting Auburn here. I'm not convinced on Hugh Freeze just yet. I'm just not. I'm sorry, Auburn, be mad at me. Call me a Bammer. Yes, and South Carolina. I've had high hopes for South Carolina the past 2 seasons, and it just has not come to fruition for me. And they were 3-5 in the SEC, 5-7 overall. Yes, they're supposed to have like 15 starters return, but I'm just not sold. I'm sorry. I'm not sold. I had high hopes and you hurt me too many times. Arkansas, again, right here. Arkansas had it so close so many times and it's just gone. And with their 2 stars out, I think we're in dog water territory here. I'm so sorry, Fayetteville. I wanted more for you. It's not there. A&M, another one. A lot of transfer portals, but also picked up some in the transfer portal. We're in a post Jimbo Fisher era. I don't know how I feel. Don't ask. I'm not there yet. But I don't think we're enough to be Midland yet. I think we moved from just plain awful to dog water, which is a good step, but we have to continue to build. And then we make it to just plain awful. Vanderbilt, it goes without saying. I'm so sorry. You didn't win a single SEC game last year. So.
But they're helping out with our GPA across the conference. So there's
100%.
They are, and they're great.
And their baseball team's their baseball team's not very good.
No, yeah.
But their basketball team wasn't very good either. Underwater basket weaving. That's where Vanderbilt.
Equestrian, maybe? I don't know.
Fun, but kind of unsafe. Watch your drinks, ladies, even gentlemen. Watch your drinks. Watch your drinks, please.
Not to mention some of the political stuff that's been going on in Nashville over the last couple of months.
Everybody be careful, okay? Anywhere. Watch.
They have an arboretum.
They have an arboretum.
We know, Wes. You love talking about your trip to the arboretum in Nashville. Hey, you bring it up anytime we talk about Vanderbilt.
That's the name of the show.
You want to know why? Because it's literally the only thing that I did on Vanderbilt campus. That's the only thing to do while I was there. So
I really like the color.
At least their stadium's like somewhat put together now, and they don't have
it's not
a crane in the end zone anymore.
With the scoreboard swinging from the crane.
Swinging free in the wind. Sorry, Jesse. Go ahead.
Really great color scheme. I really enjoy it.
It's black. That's not a color scheme.
I love it.
God, we've been here too long.
Finish up. And then we have Florida. I hate to say it, but I just think there's too much going wrong for Florida right now. And they were 3-5 in the SEC, 5-7 overall. They have a super tough schedule that's going to be so hard to overcome, and it's just I'm sorry, Florida.
This is the signal of Billy getting the boot. I think this is it.
I
really think they're going to pack up the U-Haul this year.
Yeah.
It might not even make it through the whole season.
I listen, if they start off on a real bad string, they may give old Billy the walking papers. But I mean, what do you?
Yeah.
I'll go hire a drink in Florida. That would be. Oh,
Oh
my
gosh.
brain keeps going dark places. What is happening?
Why is this?
Oh.
Do this to yourself, Matthew.
Just need to
Could
breathe.
you imagine?
Yeah.
Could you imagine if Drinky ended up in Florida?
He'd have the
Oh my God.
visor, which is
Oh
perfect for
my
that job.
God.
It's just an
No.
even bigger platform for his
Oh my
weird
God.
phrases.
Yeah.
I need to go to bed.
Yep.
I
Yep.
need to
I
go to
think
bed.
that, and I think I think it's time to transition into a lovely interview.
Yeah.
I agree.
Real quick, so I do know that you put on here, Matt, the AP poll came out today. Do we want to talk about that at all? Real
I
quick.
mean, if you guys want to talk about it, we can talk about it. I got it right here.
Yeah, let's
I mean, it's not real.
I
It's
mean,
not
it's
real.
the AP poll. You already know I'm gonna dump all over it because it's the AP poll. But first off, starting off at number one, you got Georgia. I think that's understandable. Ohio State at number two. Apparently,
Yeah.
Quinshon Judkins signing up with them was a huge thing. Oregon at three, which I find interesting,
Mhm.
and I'm really curious to see what this is going to look like with the Oregon joining the Big Ten, and not being able to beat up on the little kids in the Pac-12 anymore. Excuse me, the Pac-2. Texas at four. They're high
Yeah.
on Texas. Bama at five. Ole Miss at six. So there's three straight SEC teams. Jesse, you'll love this. Notre Dame at seven.
7. Wow.
That
Hmm.
eye roll. That was
Hmm.
great. I love that. Penn State at 8. Michigan at 9. Florida State rounds out the top 10. Banging
Mizzou
on the
right there at
door.
number 11.
Mizzou right at 11. LSU's at 13. Tennessee's at 15. Oklahoma's at 16. A&M's at 20. So they're probably a little high on the A&M people too. And that will be the end of the 25, it looks like. Although Kentucky, Auburn
Oh yeah, they did
also
get some
got a
votes.
couple votes. Not many, but a couple.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there's
Okay.
that.
I'm not incredibly surprised by any of that. I mean, maybe Oregon being so high, but it's the opening one, so what are you gonna do?
They really shouldn't put out a poll until like week 6, in my opinion. But what do
Yeah,
I
it's
know?
just for clicks. That's all.
I'm just ahead on the internet talking about college football. I don't know anything.
Cool. Well, to your point, Jesse, I think now is a great time to pause, and we'll do our very special interview. What's up, everybody? Now we have our interview, and we have a very special guest who's going to talk about a very special topic. And right now, I'm going to turn it over to Jesse for the intro.
Yeah, y'all, I am so excited for our guest this week. It's someone that I got to meet at a really impactful conference that he created for this particular area of expertise that he has within athletics. But he is a former player, he's coached, he is now a player development connoisseur. And so I am so excited to have Ed Jones on from Beyond the Field. So Ed, go ahead and jump in, intro yourself, do a much better job than I did.
As I said in the pre-show, I never heard it, so I have to say it. SEC, SEC, SEC. All right. So I'm Ed Jones. Second, I am a player development nerd. I just like player development. I was a above average high school athlete who had a great opportunity to play at schools, but I knew I wasn't going to go to the NFL. So I went to school to study sports, went to the University of Houston, then started coaching after that. After coaching while I was coaching in my alma mater, and here I was selling my players to recruits to schools in the SEC and others. And I'm selling my players to Tom Herman, who at the time was head coach at University of Houston. And he's like, I don't want them. I want you. Let's interview right now. And I was like, okay, here we go. So I thought it was gonna be my path to being a coach. I was like, I'll be an assistant coach in 5 years, a head coach in 15. And then my career, basically the player development, I saw one of our former players in a terrible situation, but we still had his jersey in our facility. We still had his records on our wall. We still use his name during recruiting presentations, but he was living something opposite of what we presented. So that's when I hung up the proverbial whistle, dove into player development, and I was fortunate to be at the University of Houston, Kansas, and Baylor. And now I'm like Jesse said, I'm a player development nerd. I create a lot of things, courses, content, coaching, and a conference. Thank you, Jesse, so much for being at the conference.
It was amazing. If anybody is out there in player development, wants to get into it, I cannot stress enough how incredible the content was, bringing in experts from all different sports, not just football, but all different sports at the collegiate level, all the way up to pros. Really, really incredible FaceTime with some professionals that otherwise you would probably never get a chance to get in their inbox, nonetheless have a one-on-one conversation with them. So Ed and his team do an amazing job, and we'll link all of their socials and website when we post this, so you guys can have a chance to jump in there. But it really is super cool, and it's something that, you know, like we talked about last week on the show, player development is something that not a lot of fans know exists. I mean, we see the news, we sometimes maybe see when a player has fallen on hard times, like you mentioned, Ed, or has gotten in a little bit of trouble, because at the end of the day, they're 18, 19-year-olds, and they're not adults, but they have so many eyes on them. And we always are quick to judge, I think, as fans, what's happening. And we don't understand what's going on behind the scenes. And we don't realize that there are people like yourself in those positions that can help. So if you don't mind, can you just give us a breakdown of what a player development specialist does in, we'll say specifically within, you know, the collegiate level?
Yes. So y'all can't hear my kids, right? Sorry.
No.
Okay, I can hear them. Okay, all right. So let me go back. All right, so player development is defined as the enhancement of the athlete experience through holistic and intentional programming and initiatives. So when I was in a role, the four things I always remember was enhancing, experience, holistic, intentional. And so in the role, as I grew into the role, I found out what I was. So what I would tell players when recruits would come on campus, I'd say, hey, you know what? After you work out, what's one of the first things you do? You get a protein shake, right? The protein shake does not replace the workout. It enhances the workout. Well, that's player development. You're coming to college, you're playing college football. I don't replace your experience. I just enhance your experiences. So that's what it looks like. I think you said it, Jesse. I love it. A lot of people forget these are big kids. Like I've had a 16-year-old, 17, like they're big kids. And another thing that people forget, specifically in football, when you like, I talked to NFL scout and I was like, why is it not just film? Why do you all have, and I just asked him, I was like, why do y'all miss on guys? Because at the NFL, they're going to miss on size and speed. And so those are two things in football you can find out pretty early with kids. There's going to be a big kid that's bigger than everybody else. There's going to be a kid that's way faster than everybody else. And so immediately their identity is you're a football player. And there are some coaches, parents, adults that remove a lot of responsibility from that athlete. And then they come to campus where now they have to have responsibility. And people don't realize that this is year one of responsibility for them, right? And so I do. And that's why I'm there, because I say, hey, this is what an email is. Like, it reminds me of the story, I think, of John Wooden would always teach his players how to tie their shoes first, or, you know, I can't think of his name. I can see his face. Lambeau, Packers. The coach. I can't think of his face. The coach for the Packers.
There it is. Yeah, I had a brain fart too.
He would always start off with, "This is a football," right? And so I think as I got deeper into it, because I was there, I was like, "Man, you guys should know this. You should know." And it's like, yeah, they should, but they don't. And I learned it in high school, being at a school where we were fortunate to have 50 kids play Division I football. A lot of parents wanted to avoid the heartbreak for their kids. Yeah, Georgia's coming here to recruit that kid. Alabama's coming to look at that kid. You're not going to play there. And a lot of people are trying to remove that reality that may help someone say, you know what? I cannot play there. They don't want me, but I'm going to go wherever I want to be. I'm going to be the best person there, whatever. And so that's a big thing, player development. You're filling that gap of what you're seeing, what's missing, right? And I had a 4-level learning process where I would educate, engage, equip, and provide experience. And it didn't matter, like, because we had some freshmen that were super mature and we had some seniors that were not as mature. And so shout out to the AI thumb. But that's what it is. So the special, we come in, and when coaches are like, because does it get on our nerves in player development as well? Yes. Does it get on coaches' nerves even more? Yes. Because coaches, I mean, it's different than when I was in school. That 5-year contract is a 2-year contract. We all know that. And so they are like, he has to pick it up. And so now I'm looking at it like, I've been around players that hygiene, like they don't like that. I literally have to go. There was a player I would literally have to go in the locker room after practice, shower now. Man, I'm trying to shower now because you get stuff like staph and all that. Like nobody's ever said anything to them. And so that and a lot of other things we do. So nobody's ever really talked to them about careers. Nobody's ever really engaged them in the community or who they truly are outside of just football. Like I love whenever we're in a team hotel, somebody gets on the piano and always plays. There's always one player that loves to play. And so it always sparks up a conversation of, hey, what's your hidden talent? What different things like that? Because it happens a lot in football. Once they are really good, it is scholarship. And what I used to always tell my high school students, I said the same thing with my college athletes. I always tell my high school students, a college scholarship is not one step closer to the NFL. You're one step away from high school football. So with our freshmen that came in, I said, you're not close to the NFL. This is you're just a step away from high school football players. Now, what you do here, the responsibilities you grow in and learn can help you in that process. So it's that we do a lot. I know for me personally, I was always personal wellness, community impact, and career development. Those are the big things. And I would tell parents, our coach would say, what do we tell parents? We're going to take care of your son, personal wellness. They're going to take care of the community impact, and then we're going to take care of them whenever their career is done, which is career development. So that's kind of the basis of what most people do in a role.
I love that. I think that's such a good, like so much happens in there, right? Like you have to teach one kid how to write an email, one you have to remind to take a shower, but these kids come from so many different backgrounds, so many different life experiences, and they are thrust into a world that is so different, and they're far away from home a lot of times. They don't know anybody. I know at Alabama, there's people from up north, New York, all over. It's a completely different culture. I mean, you're learning everything. So that community part, I think, is so vital because a university, when you're in a college town, that is everything. That's the heartbeat of where you are. So to have those athletes out in the community is huge. I would love for you to talk a little bit about some of the community programs that schools do and how getting involved in the community really does kind of keep them close to the university, or at least we hope it will.
Yeah, it was something we really did big time when my first time at University of Houston. So Houston is not a college town, massive city. A lot of people move in. You've got international diversity. You just get so much, Houston's a different city. I don't know if you've been, but it's
very different.
You go to grocery store, you hear 57 languages. Like it's crazy. Like one time I heard French. Yeah, it's crazy. And so what we had to do is our biggest fight at the University of Houston was Texas and Texas A&M. Those are what you see all the time. And those two now, Texas now being an SEC school, you see that everywhere. So we had to go to the elementary school. And what we did there was one elementary school about half a mile away from our stadium that we would come every Thursday and do reading time with them. Reading literacy was low, and our players would come and spend time with them. The first time it was like a little rally, but our players would show up, and what happened was it was an accountability measure for, let's say, little Johnny, right? Little Johnny, if you want to be with the University of Houston football players, you have to finish this worksheet, right? Or you have to read this. And our players, we had one player who didn't play. Like he was like, "Did you get it done? All right, go move around. Don't come over here." And it's just not only do we get our players because it helps the community, but it helps our players. It helps them see how much bigger they are. Because what I found out at every place I've been, when they're in the community and they make a mistake and you say, "Hey, little Johnny's going to miss out on seeing you this week because you don't know how to go to academics, or you don't know how to wake up for this, or you missed this class or whatever." Now it's like they're accountable to someone. So you have this accountability relationship where it's little Johnny and player A, and they kind of work together. That was one way we did it. Another one we did was engaging, and we did like Central, since the city was so big, we tried to stay within we tried to touch every school within a 5-mile radius, every elementary or middle school. But then we had so many people that lived around the city that were alumni principals, we would always do that once a month. And so what you're really trying to drive in that community aspect for us, that was the education piece. And that was big. But we also had an environment piece. So can we clean up we were in the 3rd Ward, which is a very traditional area in Houston. And we cleaned up one time. That was environmental. Health, can we help with health? So it was pretty interesting. They had a program at the University of Houston that was working with obesity in children. And so we actually would go over and we did like a whole football camp for them. It was pretty awesome. Like we went to our practice facility, had the sled, had the bags, had this, and just showed them that moving helps. And then the last one would be hunger. So education, environment, health, hunger. So, there's different pantries around the cities, kitchens, different things like that. We're able to help there. So I got to doing it by fours because what happened was there was players who did not like reading. There were players who did not like going to hospitals, but there were players who loved going to hospitals. There were players that love reading. And so I was like, okay, how do we tier this? Because it became a competitive thing with our head coach. He would ask a position group, hey, linebackers, I talked to Ed. You guys got 2 community hours. We got a freshman receiver that's got 8, and it's 8 linebackers. How do you have 2? So it became, and they wanted to do things, but sectioning it into those phrases allowed our players to do more impact. But it's really big because, as you said, when the players know that it's bigger than them, they get the community then started showing up to our games. They didn't know who we were. Like, this isn't a college town at the University of Houston, or even Lawrence when I was there a little bit, or even Baylor, honestly, 3 universities I worked at, people come to games, but it's not what you see in the SEC where it's like, we're going to the game, So we had to build that. And one way to build it is to provide value to the community. And it's an easier ask to say, hey, we would love for you all to come support us on Saturday. So.
Yeah. And we talk a lot on the show, especially now. You've got NIL and you've got the transfer portal, and that's the hot topics. That's what everybody wants to talk about, but it does affect player development. And you've got players, especially at really large schools like the ones in the SEC, they sign big deals, but sometimes when you're not getting the deals you thought you were, they leave and they transfer. And that causes a lot of swirl in the locker room, I'm sure. Absolutely. And that causes a lot of swirl in the conference. So as a player development specialist, how do you look at NIL and the transfer portal and its effect, not only on your position and how you would have to craft specific, education around it, but how does it affect the players and the community?
Yeah, it was crazy. My NIL story, when it came out, the head coach I was working for, he was like, hey, y'all, let's not say anything about it. Maybe the kids won't know. And I'm sitting there like, are you crazy? My timeline is full of, hey, starting tomorrow.
They knew exactly what was going on. Come on, man.
I was sitting there in the meeting like, does he not know what?
They knew before we knew.
That's always my
Ed, I have to ask you, were you at Clemson? Because that sounds like a Dabo Sweeney sort of thing.
I was sitting there. I'm sitting there like, yo, this can't be. I was looking around like, y'all, does he realize like 12 a.m. tonight is going down? But anyway, what NIL does is when it first started, I thought it would be good because I think it was the business side. It forced players to create a business, LLC, different things like that. And everybody was talking branding, but I was excited. I was like, yeah, it's business. Going back to what we talked about responsibility. You got taxes, you got to create an LLC, you got to create bank accounts so you can keep it safe. So we having all these conversations, but then of course, collective's a lot different now. But what it does in aspect, when I talk to people who are in the role, is it cuts that timeline down immediately. So every conversation is a development conversation per se. Because I got you 6 months. I'm promised 6 months with you, and so I'm trying to get as much or plant a seed. So at least at some point it works because of the transfer portal. I always thought that I was like NIL locker room. I said it kind of be like a professional locker room. Like everybody knows, like when I was in school, my sophomore year, like, okay, I understand why he's better than me. Like, let's just keep it a buck. But I can understand if it's like, but he's not better than me, But NIL, that's why I thought it would balance it because I was like I thought the specialists were going to get the most because they have the biggest personality, specialists and offensive linemen. But then when the collectives pay, I mean, it is what it is. I mean, we got schools where we pay for players. One of the universities I used to work for. But anyway, it just makes it creates every moment is now a special moment. Every conversation is a needed conversation with that athlete. Like when I was there, I could say, you know what? I'll talk to him next week about this. There is no name. You need to talk to him now because you don't know if he's going to be here at the end of the season or what's going to be on your plate. I think it truncates the mission of what you want to do, but I think you still can be very missional in it once you find out where people are, because there's a lot of life lessons there to teach. And even if we're not talking NIL, we're just talking the transfer portal. Once again, you're on a 6-month lease, but there's, for me, it's like sowing seeds. Like, what seeds can I sow? What seeds can I sow? Because before we had a transfer portal, when I was at the University of Houston, we did a lot of the grad transfers. So I had a lot of practice in that because we had like 7 guys. So I'm sitting here, they're 23 years old. They got sick 4 months, really. Like, like they know it. And so that was a good practice for me to just say, how can I provide value where they are right now in their life? One guy was from the city, from the neighborhood I talked about. He just wanted to pour back. Okay, let's pour back. Let's teach him how to pour back. So it makes it's tough. I've heard a lot of people talk about it. But I think there is still opportunities, because if you look at, the Olympics, or you look at sporting and you hear stories, like all it takes is one young kid to go to a game. They're like, so and so inspired me, and I made those steps. So it's taking advantage of every single moment you have with the players, but that's got to be tough.
Yeah, but you made a good point, even with grad transfers, and I think the transfer portal in general kind of heightens this. Is all of these players are at such a different place in their life, right? Like the curriculum that you build for a 17-year-old coming fresh out of high school is going to be very different than the 23-year-old. After the COVID years, we had some people that were like 25. We have these guys.
I mean, everybody at BYU is like 32 years old,
right? Everybody's old. But that's a very different curriculum for someone that may be married, may have children, and then you have a freshman that you're like, hey, chill out. And then you've got this person who, I think what we also forget about is you're involved with their families too. You're involved with their parents. You're involved with their spouse if they have it, their kids. That's a lot of responsibility and a lot of different programming. I mean, how do you shoulder all of that load? Because yes, we think of coaches, but there's a lot on your shoulders too.
Yeah, there's 120 players everywhere I was at, and I never got an assistant. I always begged. Recruiting got new people every single time. I was like, hey, we got recruiting, but player development's like retention. I'm actually gonna do a podcast episode of that. Like, recruiting is the lifeblood of the program. Well, player development is the veins. You can, if you got a good program, you can keep people there, keep the blood in the vein, retention, whatever. So the big thing I learned from that I'm learning now in this space is, what questions are they asking? So a kid comes up, I got a 22-year-old, and he's got a couple kids. The mother of his children is moving into town to take his kid to school. She's looking for a job. Hey, do you know anybody? Okay, so I'm listening. His number one priority right now is finding a job for the mother of his kids, which means that he's got to find a school as well. So not only do I provide value for what he wants, what's the next step? Where's the school? So let me check out a school. Let me get with alumni. Hey, blah, 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 blah. What do we have? Does anybody have anything open? Or let me go to an alumni event or a letter winner event. Hey, everybody, I'm shaking hands. Got something for you. If anybody's hiring, please let me know. I have a qualified candidate that's ready to go right now, right? And so you're listening to that. So that's my programming for that. They may never come to a resume deal. They may never come to whatever, but because I provided that value for them to not only find a job for their significant other, but then also include a school. Now they're like, oh, he's always one step ahead. So then when I do talk about resumes, they're like, and this actually happened where at a university I was at, me and this guy, we were cool, but we weren't close. But we got close when I did something for him. And I was able to have a great conversation with him about the NFL and what scouts are asking. And like, he was like, I don't want to do this or blah, blah, blah. I said, look, man, they're going to come ask me questions and I'm not lying. So here's 2 things you can do. You can do it this way that I tell you, and you can just stop. And then what happened was it ended up going well. We became close. He was a 2nd-round pick. And so it was pretty, pretty awesome. But it goes back to that. Or I have a freshman who says, coach, my roommate, he don't clean up. All right, so now I know we got to talk about conflict resolution, because what we don't talk about is it's going to be a fight at fall camp. And I'll be sitting there like, why are they fighting? Like, and so you do programming that way. Or if you got the player who you realize like they're checked out, like they know they've had injuries, or we keep recruiting a kid better than them, and they're like, I need to exit. So I'm talking to them about, okay, how do we do this? Or the player that's medically disqualified, we have to find a transition, different things like that. So you're listening to the conversation, you're watching everything as you do programming, because I'm taking any chance you gave me, I was taking it. but you're kind of watching different things, relationships. Like, hey, let's talk about relationships. And not only, you know, a lot of people talk about, you know, romantic relationships, but it's relationships like how do you need some people you need to say no to. Like you keep getting, I remember I had one player said, man, trouble keep chasing after me. I said, nah, trouble ain't chasing after you. Trouble's trying to run away from you. You were running a 4-2 sprint to that. But it's with that program, it's just listening to what guys have. They're going to tell you, and someone told me, it's an old school coach he's with, he's like, Jones, if you just listen, they'll tell you everything you want them to do for you. And so I just listen, and that's the program because it's a lot. It's, hey, you know, I want to get my master's. Do you think they'll allow me to get my master's? Like, I want to get my doctorate after that. Okay, well, cool. Let me go talk to academics and I'll get back. But you have to get back. What I learned, and I got better at this, you have to get back with them within 24 hours. And then you're able to say they're in your office and you're like, hey, you know, what's your resume look like? You know what? I never made one. What does it look like? Hey, here's a copy of mine. Tell me what you don't understand. Or you say, hey, man, like, you ever been in the community? You ever, I know you drive by that elementary school to go to your apartment. You ever been in there to meet with kids? Or, hey, you know, have you ever like, you know, how you doing? You know? So that's just how I did it. It kind of got to a point where one of the blessings that happened at Baylor for me that I didn't realize was a blessing in the role was I got a lot of what I was promised I was going to do in player development didn't happen. So I had to figure out how to actively be a player development professional without having the time I was promised or told I was going to have. And so that was a blessing in disguise because I had no excuse. I was like, I got to go to them. And so it ended up working out pretty well for me in that arena.
Yeah. And Wes and Matt, I know I've asked a bunch of questions, so I'm going to open up to the both of you because I don't want to dominate the time.
No, I'm just thrilled to learn about this stuff. And I've listened to Jesse kind of nerd out about this stuff, and I mean that in a good way because I find it fascinating. Because I feel like it's one of those things where it's one of probably the most important things, you know, for each school, but it's not talked about a lot because you know you're you're behind the scenes a lot and doing a lot of that stuff. When you said the conflict resolution, I pictured Toby from The Office getting out the conflict resolution binder. I assume you probably have a better relationship with your bosses because you're doing good things for them and helping retain those players. But the only question that I really had that just popped into my head randomly was I'm sure you've seen a lot of crazy stuff working with the players. Without naming any names, what is the craziest thing that you've had to do or that you've seen?
Yeah, this was like a night I remember being like, this like I kept pinching myself like this can't be real. Like I felt like I was in the Twilight Zone. I had a player had a panic attack, breakdown, might have had some substances, don't know. I didn't get to the bottom of that. Big guy. It was just a lot that night. It went from I was on the phone driving, like, hey, are you safe? Are you good? Like, this is like 11 o'clock at night, and I'm about to go to sleep. And his significant other calls me, Coach Jones, you got to get here. You got to get here. You got to get here. And I'm like, and I hear all this stuff. I hear crashing in the background. He's a big dude. And I'm like, oh, man, no. Like, and I asked her, was she safe? I'm like, are you safe? Is everything good? She's like, yeah, I'm good. He's not. And so I'm like, and I'm hearing all this stuff. So it's like a 40-minute ride to the university. I lived a little far out. It was just, it was always therapeutic to have that ride home. And so the conversation went from this is what we should do in the game to like, y'all should play me at this position that you definitely shouldn't play it to I want to go to the locker room right now. I got a speech for our game tonight. And I'm like, yo, we're talking July. And I'm just like, so I get there and this is happening during, I think it was during, I can't remember. It was raining. I remember it was raining or slight rain. And I come out, make sure everybody's safe. And he's like, what are you doing here? I was like, I was just on the phone. I was like, don't even worry about it. I'm here. So that happens, right? So the night gets even crazier. Someone else comes to help. I call the head coach. Because one thing I just learned with head coaches is like, just give them enough until you understand. Like, I just got to give you enough that if you hear it at the press conference, you're good. You don't get caught off guard. So, like, hey, coach, situation going on. It's crazy. I got it. I'll give you information tomorrow. Got to go. Perfect. Boom. Someone else came. And this night was crazy. So we had to call, based off protocol, we had to call our local police department. Had a relationship with him. Hey, this is what's going on. Blah, 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 blah. He's a big guy. And he like took off sprinting towards like one of the officers. I'm like, oh no. Like, thankfully they knew us. And so I'm just screaming like, stop. Like, and I'm when I say big guy, I mean like, and he's moving fast. So nothing happens, thankfully. We're trying to get him to go. And I'm talking to the other employee that is there to help me. And he steals his car. He takes his car. And I remember thinking like, and the employee's like, that's my car. And he's like, he takes off and the employee can track. He's like, I got a quarter tank of gas. So he can't really, he's like, he literally can only go to the city. So he comes back, he pulls up on us, puts the window down, looks at us, and like drives off again. And you're just like, oh man. So it's like hour 3. And what happened was, so basically he comes back, he parks the car, and then him and his significant other run into another apartment complex. And the cops are like, well, there's nothing we can do. And we all leave. And I was just like, this is like, I remember I went to a gas station. And I just grabbed a hoagie. And I was like, I'm not even hungry. I literally went to the gas station because I was like, there's no way this gas station is open at 2:00 in the morning. They were. And I was like, you know what? I'm gonna get a hoagie. And I was like, they probably don't have a hoagie. They got a hoagie. So I'm sitting in there, like eating this thing, it's just like talking to this person at the gas station, like, you won't believe my night. And so, yeah, that was the craziest. That story. I'll never forget that story.
Sometimes you just need an emotional support hoagie. I mean, honestly.
Listen, speaking as a fat kid, like food will immediately take that stress. You get some dopamine in the brain, like everything's clicking along.
I literally didn't know what to do. Because like I said, I had a 40-minute ride home. It's 3:00 in the morning. I'm just like, do I just go to the office to sleep in my office?
There.
I'm just picturing you going up to the counter or the guy up front, having your hoagie in hand and being like, I don't even want this. This is just just a comfort thing.
The story continues on as I'm explaining it to this is crazy. As I'm explaining it to my head coach, he's looking at me like, this can't be real. We get a call from one of our quality control coaches comes to the office saying, hey, so-and-so is here. And I'm like, how did he get there? He called the university to let them know he felt he was in danger from the airport. And so the university that he called, who picked up the phone happened to be the wife of our quality control coach. It was just like the craziest, like, I was just like, yeah, I saw him like 2 days later and I was like, yo, I don't know what to say to you, but I could write a book. This could be a whole like movie. It was crazy. Thankfully, okay. But it was a lot of stuff. And this goes back to it was a lot of stuff that I knew that just all unearthed in one moment. Like one conversation talking about relationships with one person, and it just went. And so that's where I come in as a coach. So like I would say, hey, let's not try and get these two in a room. Like, let's not try this person that he talked to, which was a family member, not in the facility. Like, let's. Yeah, it's that one was wild. I'll never forget that.
That's what I was saying last week. All they had to do was call their player development team, and everything would have been fine.
I'm glad his significant other knew to call me, because that thing could have got bad quick.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And
it did. Like, it was just. I just remember literally like sitting in my office and like all the coaches are coming by at this point, right? Because I had to tell his position coach. Right. And it's just like, I was like, guys, give me 3 hours, please. Like I'm fried. My brain is still trying to piece together normalcy and everything that happened. That one was crazy.
Just say thank you, young men and young women, to your player development people. Just say thank you. Even if you don't mean it, just say thank you.
When Jesse was telling me about player development and just kind of I was learning about that profession, that's sort of where my mind went. I kind of was like, gosh, I bet they deal with a lot, and it sounds like you do. So which goes back to my point about how important it is. So yeah.
There's stuff that coaches I work for still don't know to this day. And it was like, my biggest deal was I was just like, I just need to make sure that if a press conference happened, they do not get caught off guard. And so I would literally tell players, because of course we mandatory report and all that stuff, different things, or not necessarily mandatory reporting on the like let's say domestic thing, but like let's say they did something. Like it's like, hey, I have to tell him this because I'm not gonna get fired. This other stuff I know, if you do this again, I'm gonna tell him everything. All right, man, I'm done. I'm like, all right, well, I'm just letting you know I gotta go walk to his office and tell him this. He's gonna rip you apart. This other thing that I know, yeah, like you do that again.
That's
he's gonna
genius.
know that.
I'm holding on to that one.
And they trusted me, like they trusted me like it was none other. Oh, here's another crazy story about scouting. So I used to tell our players, like, let me know everything that you've done in your life. So we had this one player, and the Patriots are like asking me all these questions. The Patriots study players like none other. And I'm like, yo, I'm sitting here and I'm just like, this guy's asking me questions. I'm like, I don't know. And I'm so mad at the player. I'm like, ooh, when I get out of here. So I call him like, come to my office right now. He comes in. He's way bigger than me. He's like 6'8". I'm like, hey man, I told you. He was like, they found out about that. I was like, what do you mean? He was like, man, I got rescinded and blah, blah, blah. I was like, wait, what? Like they went all the way back and got stuff that was off. And I was just like, oh, the Patriots is different.
The Patriots must have a lot of like high school and college age girls working for them that are like receipts.
I mean, it was stuff they told me when I told him. He was like, yo, I forgot about that. Like,
I didn't even know that. I don't even know. But we talk a lot on the show too. Coach Saban has been asked about players before that have messed up in some capacity. Obviously not like super criminal capacities,
right.
But that have messed up, and people have been frustrated that even when he wasn't at Alabama, when he was with the Dolphins, or when he was at Michigan State, they've asked, why did you not kick him off the team? And he always says, wouldn't you rather, yes, I'm going to get off him. Yes. He's going to be punished. But wouldn't you rather me instill in him and teach him so he can be better than to just kick him off? So I'd love to hear your thoughts on that when a player messes up, and when there's an opportunity to potentially reinvest in them or to kind of kick them out of the team.
Yeah, I've always loved that about Coach Saban. Like I used to retweet that all the time. I didn't care if people were mad. Like with other KU, of course, Coach Miles and Coach Saban, they had the rivalry. But I always look, because I just always felt like, okay, people want to kick them off immediately, right? But then this was always my deal. What about these other students on campus that, what I found out at University of Houston, the segment of students that actually, because I was actually on student government in college. And so I had to try these different cases with students or whatever, be on account, whatever. Honor students actually get in more trouble because they study so hard, they party harder. And so it's like, well, nobody's trying to get an honor student. They like, when I say they party, I remember sitting in one of these deals like, yo, you did, well, I couldn't say it, but I'm like, he did what? Like, what did y'all think that was? And so my whole deal, I always love what Coach Saban said, well, we're not kicking out this honor student because of that. We got programming for them. We're going to keep them there. Yeah, they may be whatever. There's a punishment. There's not a exoneration out of the campus, or expulsion is the word. So for me, I was always good with that because coaches, man, it used to frustrate me so much. And maybe that's why I'm not in it no more, because I'm just a big believer. I'm going to say something. If there's a standard we're holding adults to, and we hold players to the same standard, but the adults don't meet that standard, but we want the players to meet the standard, then I'm one that's like, hey, wait a minute now. You don't do what you want. And, I've done that in my career where I've made people uncomfortable. People don't like me, but I'm just a big believer in whoever you say you're going to be, I'm going to hold you accountable to that. We can't tell these players certain things if you're not doing it. So I've worked on staffs where they want to get kids out. I'm like, yo, like, he's 18. Do y'all realize they record our stuff I did my freshman year of college? Like, I'm not a minute. Like, and so I love it. Like, and that was one thing I really, really admired about the coaches a couple coaches I worked for is like, let's get the whole story, right? Because it's everything up, this happened, that happened. Let's get the whole story. And there's like what they say is two stories, the truth's in between it. We did that. So I always love coaches that do that, because I think you kick the kid off, but you have to remind yourself of, once again, going back to the development phase. And this is why I love our role, because we know where they are developmentally. This is where they are. We can't get them there unless we intentionally help them get there. They will not get there without us. Like, there was a conversation I was having with a player who wanted to get a transfer portal. He wasn't playing for us. He was getting in some trouble on campus. And this was a consistent thing, unfortunately. so I always look at, is a kid malicious? Like I have had some like there are some malicious players, there's some knuckleheads out there. And then there's just misguided or easily influenced players. This guy was easily influenced, and we needed to work on his temper because he was just want to be Roy Jones Jr. on campus. And so he wanted to transfer, and I told him, I said, what other place is going to like give you this leash? Like, I was being honest with him. I said, you don't need to go anywhere back near home. You don't need to go anywhere there. This city is the best city for you, and we're going to work with you. I've talked to him, and we had some real tough conversations about his academic. I had to meet with him once a week, twice a week, and he got better each day. I said, what other place is going to give you this attention? You need this. And so thankfully I worked for coaches that weren't just like, let's just kick them out. Now there are certain situations where it's like, I get it. When you talk about, you mentioned criminal, there's certain things like, all right, we can't, you made a choice. But what I always say with our players is like, man, we're here to help you. Because I always go back to that coach is going to go to somebody's mom, sit on mom's couch, eat grandma's pound cake and say, yeah, we're going to take care of you. Well, let's not forget about what raising or coaching players are, especially young men that are going from into adulthood. It's tough. It's tough. It's not easy. Like, they're going to align. They're going to push back. There's going to be moments where, it is going to get testy between you and a player, but you have to be the adult. You have to, diffuse the situation and lead the next steps there. So I got big kudos to Coach Saban. I always love that because they used to come for him and he was not playing it. You were not going to get one of his players. And I just think that he's right. Like, there's some discipline things that, how do I say this? This may sound crazy, but a guy missing a game may not be the best thing for them. Like, you might have to get some other stuff that we can do that's going to get in their head. Like, because that guy, let's say that player doesn't love football yet, but that player loves community. They love being around the guys. Okay, well, let's isolate them till they get it right. And then they're going to be, okay, I got to get right to get back in the community. And then they get to love football because it's suspending guys for game. And it is what it is. We all know the athletes that are just good at it. Like, they're just good at it, right? I've been bigger, stronger, faster than everybody my whole life. I don't love it yet. And so taking them a game away from them is kind of like, whatever. But most players love the community. And when you take them away from that and say, hey, we're going to work on you. And then when you get worked on, you can join back to that. I've seen it help the process of them getting it. We did at one university I was at, that kid figured it out in 3 weeks. So,
which sounds like it's probably in that instance more important to really know that player personally and what Absolutely. They would benefit from and what people like yourself in player development would know better than perhaps even the head coach or whatever. So
yeah, and I always hear they're like, this kid doesn't love football, but he can love is an action. We can help them make that. We can help them get to that action. Like, but let's not just ride a kid off because they don't love it right now. Let's find out what they do love, and it's like punishment, right? Matt, you said my parents knew if they wanted to punish me, keep me away from the snacks. All right. I'm gonna stop. So it's just certain things like they were like, hey, no TV, cool. They're like, no video games. Like, all right, now wait a minute, so just figuring out what that is to help the person get where they need to get.
I absolutely love that. This has been amazing. I think not only did we learn so much, but I think everybody learns a lot about this because it's just not out there. Like Wes said, it's just not publicized. And I guess if it's not publicized, you're probably doing your job well, because if you're doing a terrible job, your name might get thrown out there. But
get off the coach's desk.
Right? It's huge. These players need it. At the end of the day, the amount of players at the collegiate level, like we're talking about, most of them are not going to go be professional athletes. They're just not. And so building them up to be great humans and building them up to succeed and find an identity outside of football or whatever sport they're playing is so vital. And like I mentioned on the upfront, Ed has an amazing podcast. He has books. He has incredible conferences, like I said. So Ed, before we let you go, plug all the things. We're going to tag them, but where can everybody find you?
Yeah, so I'm a super nerd, so I have a lot of stuff. I think I just recorded my 150th podcast episode. It's crazy. But you can find all socials. It's BTF_program. So Twitter, Instagram, I think BTF program. And then on YouTube, it's Beyond the Field player development. You'll probably see my face in some cringe, whatever motion. That's that. To visit the website, I have 2 ebooks, btfprogram.com. And yeah, that all the information is there in the show notes of our videos. If you want courses, if you want more stuff, email me if you're interested in this. Maybe you're a SEC coach, you never know, a high school coach or maybe another sport. You're interested in player development, you can email me at info@btfprogram.com. I'm pretty sure it'll be in the show notes, but yeah, I'm a nerd. I talk about it all the time. Like, just found out I get to speak at the Pro Football Hall of Fame at a conference about this stuff. Yeah. So
it's awesome.
Canton's awesome. Canton's awesome. They do a lot of fun programming there. I've gotten to work with them before, and it's a lot of fun. But most kids won't make it to the hall, so we have to make them good humans. So even if they make it to the
Hall of Famers in whatever lane they choose, be a Hall of Fame employee, dad, father, touch, whatever they choose.
I love that. And even if you're a Hall of Famer, you should still be a good human. We love that.
We do. We do. I got to give a shout out to one of the best Hall of Fame, like Carl. I work with Carl Lewis at the University of Houston. You want to talk about somebody that can walk around like with the ego, you just got to be like, hey, man, it is what it is. One of the most approachable people ever. Like, our parents used to lose it on recruiting trips. They'd be like, is that Carl Lewis? Like, yeah, that is Carl Lewis. Just so approachable. So I love it. That was a great example for me. You could literally be the best, like you said, a Hall of Fame player and still be humble. So
I love that. Yep. Anthony Munoz is always my favorite gold jacket to work with because he's so big and scary looking, but he's the most lovely, approachable, chatty guy. He never says no to a picture or a person. He's so wonderful. And we loved having him at events. But Ed, thank you so very much from all of us at Pigskins and Pageantry. And I know we'll be in contact, but we will link all of the things. And I hope everybody learned a lot because I know we did.
Thank y'all so much for the opportunity. And as I always say to those listening, go out and create generational impact. Don't wait. Create it today.
Exactly.
Wait a minute. Hold on. Before we let you go, Ed, we can't let you go with at least asking who you think's winning the SEC this season.
Oh, I knew you were gonna put me on the spot.
I don't like we have to have that information.
This will make shock people.
Oh.
All these SEC. Hey, if you're an SEC program, you hear this prediction, I still will work with you. I got a gut feeling, and it's not because I'm in Kansas City, but I got a gut feeling that Mizzou's gonna pull it off.
Okay. You lost Matt. You lost Matt completely.
I know.
Ed, you were doing so well.
I did not see that coming.
That's my dark horse. Like,
okay. That's bold.
I saw their schedule. I work out at night. I work out at night with this guy, and he's a Missouri alum. He told me the schedule, and I was like, you know what? If they can pull those two, you got a chance. Sorry, man.
I don't think we'll argue that point. We've talked about the fact that Missouri's schedule soft as cheese, but God, I don't know. I think I'd rather see Bama win another national championship than Missouri get. But I only say that because I've been going round and round with Missouri fans all summer about stuff. So, whatever.
I can't wait till y'all play them again. I can't wait till y'all play them again because I saw the shirts, and I know y'all don't play them this year. I saw the shirts, so
Man, I want another shot at drinking so flipping bad. Oh, I need it like I need air. Oh God.
Who knew? This too. I would have not. I didn't see that coming.
I didn't either, and
we'll see. Yeah.
Well, Ed, thank you for joining us. We do appreciate it, even though
no problem.
I'm questioning everything now, but we won't get into all that.
Thanks, Ed. Appreciate it.
Thanks, y'all.
No problem.
All right. Well, that was an amazing interview. I really enjoyed that. Honestly, I knew next to nothing, and it was great to learn. Obviously, I've heard you talk about it, Jesse, a little bit, but it was really great to hear Ed talk about it super in depth and some of the wild stories too. So it was funny. I thought about, so we mentioned that if you're, as a player development person, if you're doing your job well, no one knows you're there. I kind of liken it to, so I used to run sound And that was basically the same way too. If no one knows that you're there as a sound person, then you've done your job. But if everybody's looking around at you, that means you didn't do your job or something happened. So anyway, yeah, no, I really enjoyed it.
Be nice to your player development people. They're the people that all the promises and I'm going to take care of your son or daughter that the coach makes. They're the people that actually have to put it into action. And they're the ones that these student athletes call when something happens and they're afraid to call somebody else. They're the people that they call. So they're doing the Lord's work. Okay.
And I said it during the when we were off the air. These guys, there's a lot of people that say a lot of bad things about college football and semi-professional sports, that we're just churning out all these kids that all they know is football. That's not necessarily the truth. A lot of these kids come to those player development guys with zero background, like even simple things like how to read an itinerary, how to send an email, all those things that we talked about in the interview. Like, those are things that kids need to learn how to do that they may not have the skill set of before they go to college. So, people like Ed, they definitely are pulling the mail on that one.
For sure. Yep. So we will make sure and hook up Ed's socials and all of the info on the episode and on the different social medias. So that'll do it for this week's episode. We're 1 week closer to the regular season, so pretty excited about that. If you guys would like to contact us, you can email us at pigskinsandpageantry@gmail.com. We are at Pigskins and Pageantry for TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook. On X, we are PPSCC Podcast.
Twitter.
And don't forget, we are. I just had that conversation this week. I was like, if you say I X'd something, nobody knows what you're talking about. But if you say if you say I tweeted something, everybody knows what you're talking about. So it's like it's still anyway.
Fix it, Elon. Fix it.
I digress. We are available for download on iTunes, Spotify, Amazon Music, TuneIn Radio, and most podcasting apps for iPhone, Android, and other operating systems. If you enjoyed the show, please take a moment, subscribe, review. We'd love those 5 stars. Until next time, this is Wes. Go Dogs, and don't forget we have merch. Go check it out in our link in bio.
I'm going to find a way, and I hope you do too, this week, to use dog water in a sentence. So that should be fun.
And Midland.
Worldwide.
I love it. I absolutely love it. Guys, have a great week. We'll see you back here in another week, and go Vols.